When you truly understand that your path is yours alone, life changes. You stop looking left and right, constantly measuring your progress against the steps of others, and you begin to realize that you were never meant to walk the exact same road as anyone else. The world will try to convince you that there's a universal timeline, that by a certain age you should have achieved this, accomplished that, or checked off certain boxes. But that timeline isn't yours. It's a projection of other people's expectations. The reality is, your life is an individual mission. The roads you take, the obstacles you face, the detours that redirect you, they are designed specifically for your growth. Comparing that to someone else's path is like comparing a mountain trail to an ocean voyage. Different terrains, different challenges, different destinations. You have to understand something about comparison. It is an invisible thief that creeps into your mind and convinces you that you are behind. But behind what? Behind who? There is no starting gun, no finish line that we all share. The moment you compare your journey to someone else's, you disconnect from your own purpose. You dilute your focus because you're spending your mental energy staring at someone else's milestones instead of building your own. Imagine a runner on a track who keeps glancing over at the person in the next lane. Their pace suffers, their stride falters, and they lose momentum. That's exactly what comparison does to your life. Your path is built around your lessons, your mistakes, your victories, and even your moments of stillness. What looks like stagnation from the outside might be a period of necessary preparation. Sometimes life pulls you back like an arrow so it can launch you further. But if you're too busy staring at someone else's trajectory, you'll miss the fact that you're being positioned for a shot you can't even see yet. Your setbacks, delays, and even heartbreaks are not signs that you're failing. They're ingredients that will make your success richer, deeper, and more meaningful when it arrives. The dangerous thing about comparing your life to others is that you are only ever comparing it to the part they choose to show. People rarely display their struggles, their sleepless nights, their moments of doubt. You see the polished result, the promotion, the wedding, the perfect vacation, but you don't see the debt, the arguments, the anxiety behind those images. Judging your reality against their highlight reel is like comparing your raw, unedited life to a movie trailer. And then you wonder why you feel like you're falling short. You're not falling short. You're living in reality, not in the illusion that's been carefully crafted for public display. When you stop comparing, something powerful happens. You start focusing inward. You start asking yourself better questions. Instead of asking, why am I not there yet? You begin to ask, what do I need to learn here? Instead of saying, they're so far ahead of me, you begin to say, how can I take the next best step for me? That shift changes everything. Your goals become personal again. Your wins feel authentic because they're rooted in your values, not in someone else's scoreboard. Here's a truth you need to accept. There will always be someone who seems to be doing better than you in some area. There will always be someone richer, fitter, more accomplished. If your self-worth is tied to outshining everyone else, you will live in a constant state of anxiety and dissatisfaction. But if your self-worth is tied to staying true to your path, no one can take that away from you. You can look at other people's achievements without feeling threatened because you know they are running a completely different race. Their success is not your loss. In fact, their success can be proof that good things are possible, and that should fuel your belief, not your jealousy. The beauty of owning your path is that you stop rushing. You start trusting the timing of your life. You begin to understand that everything you're going through is either preparing you, protecting you, or positioning you for something you cannot see yet. You stop asking, why me? And start thinking, why not me? And why not now? You start appreciating the parts of your journey that used to frustrate you, because you see how they are shaping your resilience and building your character. When you stop comparing yourself to anyone else, you reclaim your energy. You use it to build instead of to brood. You use it to create instead of to criticize yourself. You focus on being 1% better every day rather than obsessing over how far ahead someone else might be. You understand that the measure of your life is not how it stacks up to others, but how aligned it is with your own values and purpose. You realize that your mission is not to match someone else's path, but to fully walk your own, with courage, with patience, and with the deep knowing that you are exactly where you need to be right now, and one day, you'll look back and thank yourself for staying the course. You'll see that every detour, every pause, every season of uncertainty was actually a step in the exact direction you needed to go. You'll see that the moment you stopped comparing yourself was the moment you truly started living. When you compare yourself to others, you give away your own power without even realizing it, because the moment you look at someone else's journey and use it as a yardstick for your own, you've already taken your focus off what truly matters: your own growth, your own progress, your own fight, and your own path. Because every minute spent sizing up someone else's life is a minute stolen from building your own. And this is a dangerous trade, because the cost is your peace, your confidence, and your momentum, because comparison doesn't just plant seeds of self-doubt, it waters them until they grow into full-blown limitations in your mind, making you believe you are less, slower, weaker, or behind, when in truth, none of that is real. It's just an illusion crafted by your focus being pointed in the wrong direction. Because here's the reality. You don't know the whole story of anyone you compare yourself to. You only see what they allow you to see, the highlight reel, the curated version, the polished outcome, but not the sleepless nights, the private failures, the internal battles, or the sacrifices that never make it to the surface. And when you judge yourself against that incomplete picture, you're building your self-worth on shaky ground, so shaky that the smallest setback can make it crumble. But if you turned all that energy inward, if you stopped tracking someone else's pace and started running at your own, you'd see that you have more control than you've ever realized. Because in your lane, there is no competition, only evolution, and this shift changes everything. Because instead of feeling small in someone else's shadow, you begin to grow under your own light. Instead of chasing validation from the outside, you begin to respect the grind you put in when nobody's watching. And this isn't just about confidence, it's about clarity. Because when you stop comparing, you can finally hear your own voice without the static of everyone else's opinions. And you start making moves that are right for you, not moves that look impressive to someone else. And here's the hard truth: comparison often comes from fear that you're not enough, fear that you're falling behind, fear that your life won't measure up. But fear is a liar, and it feeds off your focus. So if you want to starve it, you have to redirect your attention back to the only person you can control, yourself. And the more you invest in your own progress, the less tempted you'll be to measure it against someone else's. Because you'll see that your story is unique, your pace is right for you, and your journey cannot be replicated. And when you live like that, not only do you move faster, but you also move freer, because you're no longer carrying the weight of someone else's life on your back. And here's the beautiful part: when you stop comparing, you start celebrating. Because instead of resenting someone else's win, you can be inspired by it, because it no longer feels like their success is taking away from yours. And that's when life opens up. That's when possibilities multiply, because your focus is finally where it should have been all along, on building the strongest, sharpest, most unstoppable version of yourself. When you compare yourself to someone else, you're placing yourself in a race you never agreed to run, and measuring your worth by a ruler that was never designed for you. It's the quickest way to drain your energy, destroy your confidence, and rob you of the very thing that makes you unique. Here's the truth: comparison is a thief. It doesn't just take your joy. It takes your focus, your vision, and your belief in what's possible for you. Every time you look at someone else's life and think, "They're ahead of me," or "I'm behind," you're buying into the lie that life is a linear ladder where everyone climbs the same rungs in the same order. But life is not a racetrack. It's a personal journey, and no one else is running your route. You have your own starting line, your own pace, and your own finish. You might be in your season of planting, while someone else is in their season of harvest. Just because they're picking fruits doesn't mean you're failing. It means your time simply hasn't come yet. And when it does, you'll realize that all the time you wasted comparing could have been spent building the life you actually want. The moment you compare, you stop seeing your strengths and start focusing on your supposed weaknesses. You discount the battles you've fought, the storms you've survived, and the skills you've developed in the shadows. You tell yourself, "I'm not as good," when in reality, you're just on a different timeline. You've got to understand that someone else's success doesn't diminish yours, just like their failure won't enhance it. There is no shortage of opportunity, no shortage of space for you to rise, no shortage of moments where you can shine. But the more you stare at someone else's lane, the less attention you give to your own. And here's the dangerous part. Comparison often leads to imitation. You start adopting their habits, their style, their path, thinking it will bring you the same results. But the problem with imitation is that it kills authenticity. You can't win trying to be someone else because the very thing that made them successful is that they leaned fully into being themselves. That's your power too. Owning your voice, your way, your process. And yes, it's hard to avoid comparison when social media shoves other people's highlight reels in your face every single day. But remember, you're seeing the curated version of their life, not the full picture. You don't see the late nights, the doubts, the failures, or the sacrifices that came before their victories. So stop comparing your behind the scenes to their red carpet moments. If you want to measure progress, measure it against who you were yesterday. Did you grow? Did you get better? Did you make a choice today that will benefit your future self? That's the only competition worth having. The one with the person you were the day before. The truth is, the most unstoppable people are those who stay so focused on their own lane that they don't even notice who's ahead or behind. They're too busy creating, building, and living with purpose to waste time looking over their shoulder. That's the mindset you need. Every ounce of energy you spend comparing is an ounce of energy you take away from becoming the best version of yourself. You don't win by outrunning someone else. You win by becoming so unshakably yourself that no comparison can touch you. When you spend your life comparing yourself to others, you put your happiness on a leash that someone else holds. You start measuring your worth by standards you didn't set and by rules you didn't create. You begin to view your own life through the lens of someone else's highlight reel, forgetting that what you're seeing is only the edited version, not the whole story. Every time you tell yourself, "I'm behind," "I'm not enough," or "I should be more like them," you're planting seeds of self-doubt that grow into frustration, insecurity, and even resentment. This is the trap of comparison. It robs you of joy in the present and blinds you to your own progress. The truth is, you don't know the full cost of what someone else has, the sacrifices they made, or the pain they hide. And often the people you compare yourself to are comparing themselves to others too. It's a never-ending cycle that leads nowhere but deeper into dissatisfaction. You have to remember, life is not a race and there is no universal scoreboard. The timeline that works for someone else may not work for you, and that's not only okay, it's necessary. Your path is yours because it was built for your strengths, your weaknesses, your challenges, and your growth. The more energy you pour into watching others, the less energy you have to invest in yourself. That's why you need to stay in your lane, keep your eyes forward, and focus on building the life that matters to you. Ask yourself, what do I truly want? Not what looks impressive on social media, not what my family expects, not what society praises, but what lights me up, what makes me feel alive. Because when you focus on that, you stop needing validation from other people. You stop chasing someone else's version of success and start defining your own. And the irony is, the moment you stop competing with others, you actually start to win, not against them, but against the version of yourself that was holding you back. This isn't about ignoring others' success. It's about celebrating it without letting it diminish your own. It's about realizing that someone else's win doesn't mean you've lost. Their progress doesn't erase yours. If anything, it can inspire you, but only if you see it as proof of what's possible, not proof of what you lack. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply on your path, at your pace, doing the work that matters for your life. The only competition you should have is with the person you were yesterday. So when you feel that familiar pull to compare, pause and redirect your focus inward. Use that energy to become sharper, stronger, more disciplined, more aligned with your values. Because in the end, the goal isn't to be better than anyone else. It's to be so grounded, so clear, and so confident in who you are, that comparison loses its power over you. Comparison will rob you of your own power because every time you look at someone else and measure yourself against them, you're playing a game you can never win. A game that shifts the rules without your permission. A game that turns your focus outward when the real work is inward. And here's the truth. The moment you give your attention to someone else's timeline, achievements, or image, you stop building your own, because instead of asking, What do I need to do to grow? You start asking, how do I keep up? And the answer to that is always a chase, not creation. It becomes an endless sprint after an image that isn't yours, and that sprint leaves you exhausted, resentful, and disconnected from yourself. The danger here is that comparison rarely deals in truth. It deals in illusions because you're not comparing yourself to their reality. You're comparing yourself to the version they allow you to see, which is curated, edited, and polished. You see the highlight reel, not the behind the scenes, so you set your worth against a fantasy, and the more you do that, the more your own reality starts to feel insufficient. No matter how far you've come, no matter what you've achieved, it will never feel like enough if your measure of success is someone else's life. And here's the brutal truth. Even if you match them step for step, you'd still feel empty, because you weren't chasing your path, you were living theirs. And that's why comparison is so dangerous, because it's not just about wanting what they have, it's about abandoning your own path to pursue it. And the moment you do that, you stop writing your own story, you start becoming a supporting character in theirs, you hand over the pen, and they don't even know it. And the worst part is, the more you compare, the less you see the value in your own strengths, the less you recognize your own progress, because all of it becomes invisible under the weight of, I'm not there yet, and they're ahead of me. But here's the shift you need. Stop asking, how do I compare? And start asking, how do I become better than I was yesterday? Because that is the only comparison that matters. That is the only battle you can win, and it's the only one worth fighting. When you measure yourself against your own progress, you win twice. Once by recognizing your growth, and again by building the momentum to keep going. So if you want freedom from comparison, you have to turn your focus back inward. You have to take stock of your own victories, however small, and recognize that your journey is unique, and that means no one else can be ahead or behind you, because they're not even running the same race. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll stop wasting energy trying to match someone else's pace. You'll start using that energy to build your own, and the more you do that, the less space comparison has to live in your mind, because your vision becomes so clear, your steps become so intentional, that what others are doing fades into the background. And here's the beauty of that. When you stop comparing, you don't just gain peace, you gain power. You reclaim all the mental space you've been renting out to envy, doubt, and distraction, and you fill it with purpose, action, and self-respect. And in that space, you can finally build something that's truly yours, something no one can take from you, because it wasn't borrowed or imitated. It was created from the ground up by you. And when you stand in that space, you realize that the people you used to compare yourself to were never your competition. They were just running their race, and you were always meant to run yours. When you compare yourself to someone else, you're playing a game you can never truly win, because you're measuring your worth with a ruler that was never designed for you. That ruler belongs to them. It's shaped by their life, their past, their struggles, and their victories. And no matter how hard you try, you will never fit perfectly into the mold that belongs to someone else. Every time you look at what they have and measure it against yourself, you diminish the value of your own journey. You rob yourself of the chance to appreciate where you've come from, because your eyes are too busy staring at where they are. You see, life isn't a race where we're all running toward the same finish line. It's more like a vast landscape, with each person walking their own path. Some walk on smooth roads, some climb steep mountains, some swim through storms. The terrain is different for everyone, and so is the time it takes to get to where they're going. When you compare, you ignore your unique terrain and pretend that everyone's path should look the same. That's a lie that will eat away at your confidence and peace. The truth is, comparison will either leave you feeling inferior, thinking you'll never be as good as someone else, or it will fill you with false pride, thinking you're above someone else. Both are poison. Both blind you to the reality that your only competition is the person you were yesterday. You have no idea what sacrifices someone else made for what they have, just like they have no idea what sacrifices you've made. You might see the success, but you don't see the sleepless nights, the failures, the hidden costs they paid. You might see the smile, but you don't see the pain it hides. And they might see you and think you have it all, without ever knowing the storms you've survived. So why waste your energy on measuring? Why waste your time trying to match someone else's pace when the real victory is in moving forward in your own lane? You have your own timeline, and rushing it because you think you're behind will only make you miss the lessons you're meant to learn right now. The irony is, the very thing you envy in someone else might be something they don't even value, and the very thing you take for granted in yourself might be the thing someone else prays for. This is why the most powerful thing you can do for your growth, your peace, and your happiness is to put your focus back on you. Measure yourself only against who you were before. Celebrate the fact that you're learning, you're growing, and you're becoming stronger in ways you couldn't have imagined. The day you stop comparing is the day you take back your power. It's the day you stop letting the world dictate your worth and start defining it for yourself. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never want to give it away again.